So, let me recommend something to you today. If you're out and about, oh, it's freezing, oh, blimey, obviously you've got to cover your head. But look at this, these quilted, you know, we've all got overalls, we all use overalls and we have bibs and all that sort of thing you want, but now I've had this for years, as you can tell. It's my workshop one. It's get one that's bigger. Don't get one that fits, get one that over fits you, because you can move around and you can also put a big woolly jumper on underneath. That won't last very long. I'll get too warm, I'll take that off. For messing about, depending on what you're doing, whether you're standing, you know, by a machine, grinding, belting, whatever you're doing, or if you're moving around, you will get warm. The good thing about these one-piece overalls, they go over your ordinary trousers. So it's not a case you're taking your trousers off. You've got your trousers on underneath. You're fully dressed underneath. And then they go over you, so get a nice big size, you know. And what's good about these is you don't get a builder's bum. You see this elasticated strip here? It just keeps everything in space, and you don't get your t-shirt moving up, you don't get your back, and you don't get any builder's bum with it. Do you know what I mean? And it's got plenty of pockets. So it's got internal pockets and external, so you can access the actual pocket, which again washes in there. You can access its own pocket in the overall with a zip here, but it also has another slide. You can access your pockets of your inside trousers. So I do highly recommend them. I use them all the time in the winter. As you can see, this gets well hammered. But get one where you can move around and you ain't going to trap yourself. Or it isn't going to give you a squeaky voice when you bend over. Get one nice and move aroundable inside it. And you know, they're great. One piece quilted overalls. Overalls is another layer, but you find these, they're quilted. Keep an eye open for them. And it's got that sort of insulation stuff. So for all you out and abouters, even in a cold shed, they're good, because you know, you've covered your head. Wear gloves if it's that cold, if your hands are cold, but the whole of you is quite warm, so you can handle the cold weather and still get stuff done. So let me recommend these quilted crisscross on the inside, look, these quilted overalls to you for when you're messing about in the winter. So today we're going to make a new plan. We're thinking about, look, I've got a pointing stick. We're thinking about a new security for the gate, and I see loads of people making security on the door in itself, on the access point. But I haven't seen anybody making a secret security. So obviously you'll have to look at the lie of the land where you're building in. So we've got the garage here. And we've got the shed. This is the spare shed with gardening stuff, all paint and all that. I keep it away from my own shed. This is like Debbie's shed, we say, where we kept the mower when we had real grass. Anyway, I noticed we've got ornaments on the walls. All of us generally have got things on the walls, haven't we? Yeah, I wonder. And you know, I like to put it so that you don't have to, okay, obviously getting in and out, you need a set of keys, don't you? So you've got to remember to bring your keys. I like to do things that are homemade that you don't need keys, secret. So we're going to plan and begin to make a secret and think about what are we going to do. We're going to make a secret lock here. We're going to make a secret thing here. It's going to start here. We're going to have maybe something like that bird box twisted on its side. It's open, and so you can look from the house. Have I locked the garage? Yes. And we're going to make this one of the main locks. We're going to make it good and sturdy. So we're going to start here, and we're going to think of some sort of garden ornament, garden hanging wall thing. Even if it was this is only plastic, on its side is open and straight up it's shut. Or something like that. Could even be a wheel, I suppose, if you put like a ship wheel or a clock. Or we've got to go in through this wall. But we've got to go in at the height, because we've got to transfer. We've got to transfer our lock from over there through the wall into here. So I can see that pretty simple. It's quite easy to move, transfer something a long way. You know, if you turn it this way, it turns that way when it's connected. Same as we've got the lock over there, haven't we? That's a pushy pull hook thing. But we've got to try and turn the corner. So we've got to think of something here. I'm thinking of running it inside a scaffolding tube, or even using the scaffolding tube itself. So let's go in this shed here, which I know is a bit of a state. But here is the bench height. Here's a I think it's going to be too inconvenient to run it across the top. So we're going to have to come in at this bench height here. So we're going to come across here, we'll have something the other side of this wall, drill a hole, come along here and go underneath this bench height. So the tube, the scaffolding tube, will be underneath here, out of our way. Yeah, we might even, I am thinking of redoing this, but that's going to be the bench height. So it's going to be just under the bench. It's going to go in that wall there. Going to go in through that wall there. Okay, we know that. Let's go the other side of that wall. So now, the other side of that wall is here. So even if we have to knock out a shelf or move one up or down or whatever, but we've got to have it coming out of this area here, haven't we? We've got to have our connection, our joint, like we have here, coming through the wall. We have to have it coming through the wall. This one is only one wall thick, that one. So that's no big deal. So we're going to have it coming through the wall at about this height. Yeah. And we've got to make it slide across. You see here, we've been able to come round the corner. Start there, just put a bend in it. So we can keep it close to the wall if we choose, or we can bring it out. It won't take up much space. We could then run it in front of a shelf or above the shelf, or let's see how we feel about it, see how secure it is. But yeah, we can bring it out the other side of the wall. We can follow the line if we choose to. And what I'm thinking, it's simply going to be bar across. But it's not going to be any ordinary bar across thing. We're going to make the thing humongous. We're going to use one of these big bolts here. We're going to use one of these big ones, and it's going to be a ginormous thing. And it's going to go slot across there, jam this somehow at whatever level. We'll make some sort of connection. We'll make it fit this door, or we'll make this door fit it, you know. Making a connection shouldn't be too hard. But it's going to be a proper meaty old thing. And we're going to bring it along here. It's going to come out there. We'll have some sort of connection movement there, and we'll talk about that in a minute. How we're going to transfer it along. It looks pretty simple, I think. Pretty simple. Yeah, it's going to be running under this bench here. Running that bench here. And like I say, it's not a case of did you bring the keys. You've got to remember, all you've got to remember is, as you approach the door, is the sneaky lock, whatever we're going to make here, engaged. I think, yeah, it's fairly simple, I think. Fairly simple. Let's look at a few theories. So, let's have a look. This is going to be our outer cable. This is going to be how it's going to transfer. Now, this can be as long as short as you want. It can be as long as any outer or as long as any inter. So we can send it as far or as long or as short as we want. So if we put it in that orientation, looking at both sides, up means up and down means down. So we can do that, but if we just swap it around simply, then down here means up there, or up here means down there. So we can do whatever we want. We can exactly make what we want. We can even, you know, if pushing it to the right means makes it go right, and pushing it to the left means making it go left. Pushing it to the right, that goes right. Pushing it to the left, that means it goes left. But you can swap that around. So what can happen is, if you push this to the right, that goes to the left. Or if we push this to the left, that goes right. So we can, the world is an oyster, we can make anything we want. We can make anything we want. Now we've already seen that we can transfer a thread screwing in on the door. When you thread it down, it pushes a lever, which then pushes the lever up. So we can also use that sort of mechanism. We can put a thread here, can't we? Get something that we twist. And as it screws in, it then pushes. But obviously you've got to make some sort of mechanism this side of it that will transfer it into an up movement or a down movement or a left movement or a right movement. Yeah. And like on the door, we've seen, I think they're called idler arms, where, let me just remind you. No, I'll tell you what, I'll do another piece. So whilst we've been making these locks, we've learned that if you push that up, that will do a move to the right. Or if we push this down, that will move to the left. So now we've got, if this is pivoted here on this corner here, we can turn an up and a down movement into a left and a right movement. Yeah. Or we can turn, if we do it the other way around, we can make a left movement go down or a right movement go up. So it's quite a clever thing, this. And if we turn it around and you've decided, right, we want to move it right, which makes it go down, or we can turn it to the left, which makes it come up. And you can swap that around, whatever angle, whatever, you know. So if we move it to the right, it comes up. If we move it to the left, it goes down. So we know we can use these sort of joints. We can change direction as many times as we want. Obviously, more directions, more friction, more trouble. So there's no obstacle we can't get around, is there? Just using, there's nothing that's out of our reach, using a scaffolding tube and another steel inside it, somehow some sort of outside casing. I mean, you don't really need it. You could use the actual scaffolding tube if you choose. So just on those ideas and principles and thinking about it, we can get anywhere and do anything, can't we? We can transfer from one end of the building, whether for argument's sake you wanted to make it through the back of the building. Say you had a 12-foot building. This can be 12 inches or this can be 12 feet. If you're just transferring in a straight line, as long as you can keep it straight and it will take the torque of it. So there's nothing we can't do. There's nothing we cannot do. We've just got to sit and think and use what we've got and make a plan. And obviously I always like it so that you don't have to bring a separate key with you or whatever. We're going to make together a little sneaky little whoever watched Batman, he lifted the head of and he pressed the button. Anybody seen any James Bond film, any secret doors, anything secret? We're going to make ourselves a secret major lock. And when I say major, the reason I call it a major lock is because it's not going to be nothing skinny like this. It's going to be a huge bolt. Yeah, it's going to slide across. Yeah. And as you walk up to the garage door, obviously the one thing you've got to have before you go through a locked door is a set of keys. So, okay, you've got to think about, have you got the keys to open the door? And the next thing will be, is the ornament, the bird box, the whatever, in the right orientation to be able to get in. And only you and me will know. If the bird box is on its side, you won't get in. But no, if the bird box is upright, the way it should be, and it looks okay, you'll get in. It'll be locked, I should say. Yeah, we'll have something like this. Argument's sake, we'll have something like this. If this is a bird box, you know, if the bird box is looking natural, the place will be locked. And then you'll go, all right, I better move the bird box sideways. That means that'll make you get in, or whatever, you know, whatever ornament we find or we decide to put there. So that way we can get in, that way we cannot, or vice versa, whatever you fancy, whatever, you know, you've got a little man, little windmill man, and you think, well, if the windmill man is like that, it's locked, and if it's like this, it'll be open. Are you with me? Are you with me? Send me your ideas. Let me know. Send me, make a little film. We're gonna make an extra sneaky lock. Because you all seem to be loving these and making lock films. What have we got? Yeah, what's the biggest bolt have we got? That's pretty big. They're pretty good. You could grind them off. That one's pretty good. Depends on how much throw. That's okay if you've got a long throw. You know, if you're going to put a lot of movement in it. But sometimes you can't put a big movement in it. And remember, you've got to cover it outside as well. So it's got to connect. We've got some here, haven't we? These are pretty big. We've got plenty of corners to work on to make links with. What else have we got? What's the biggest? Where is the biggest? Oh, there's one up there. There's a beauty up. Oh, that'd be nice. One on its own. You could either, if you didn't want to bother, you'd cut off the thread and just use the smooth shaft part of it, the collar of it, or you could just grind the thread away until it's smooth, like we've done before, to make it fit on the back of this one. Look, we to make it fit through there. But obviously the diameter of this was determined. See, that was all thread, but we had enough movement to play, so just grind all the thread off. It still creates enough. There's not a lot of throw. I'd like to put a bit more throw. This only just catches, but that's all you want it to do, because do you remember we've put the lock behind it, so it cannot, that restricts, you can't rattle it out because that lock is real tight on it. But we might not do that with this, so we'll preferably like to have a bit of a better throw, like for instance this. Now I want that to go all the way and stick out the other side. Wow, that's got some grip. You're not going to be kicking that out anytime soon, are you? So do we want it just about gripped, which we do, or do we want it to come through the other end? How are we going to make that happen? Wow. Yeah. Let's do some measuring. So we know we've got scaffolding tube. I'm guessing it's going to come down via the usual way. We'll make this rod, and we might have to put a few rods together to make it stretched over the distance. I think the long one will do. I mean, if you wanted to, you could use the whole tube in itself. if you didn't have the rod to go inside, you could use the tube itself. So the tube goes in and out and twists and turns. Because it's sitting on a brick, it's not going to foul anything. If you make the hole round outside just a little bit bigger, this will sit and twist on brickwork. It's not going to foul up, is it? It's not going to get trapped. No. These, and I know you're looking at it and you're thinking, well, that's a nut and a thread. But once you've ground, if you wanted to keep that as a keep, so we keep that side, slide it along or through this one. I know it would be difficult to take the thread off the inside of this, but the only thing that's connecting this with that, and it's a good sturdy thing, isn't it, is this. So it's big and thick enough, just grind all the thread off it, grind all this off, all the threads, and that would then go in and out there quite easily, wouldn't it? So you could turn that into a shaft, a keep, or a, you know, it's going to be this lock we're going to make, and it's going to have weight on it, so you're going to have enough of a handle or enough of a leverage to make it work. And like I say, I use these a lot. That's a turning point, isn't it? You know, up and down, left and right. This thing's going to be massive. Yeah! I mean, we've used that idea before, haven't we? We could weld this nut on the end of a scaffolding bar. Yeah, scaffolding tube. Then we've got the ability to screw something in and out, haven't we? Oh, it might be something like a ship wheel or something, and it looks nice on the wall, and all you do is spin it in and out. Well, that would give us that movement, wouldn't it? If we welded this onto there. If you've used that, the more you think, the more you look, the more you find, the more ideas that come into your head. Yeah. It doesn't have to be a bolt. It could be a good piece of flat bar. As long as you can move it, as long as you can make the thing move and go in and out. Flat bar does the same job, doesn't it? Yeah. But I do like when you use, I don't think they ever would. You wouldn't get a hacksaw and hand hacksaw through that gap, would you? Whereas if you had a bolt, it'd be a hardened bolt on the end. A lot more difficult to mangle. But that would be all right. You could make that come in and out. You'd need quite a throw though, wouldn't you? You'd need quite a movement to get that to go in and out. This is the great thing. You just walk about, just walk around your workshop and just mess with it, just play with it, just think about it. And what are you going to make? And no doubt we'll make something and no, that idea doesn't work, and we'll change it. Improve and invent as you go along. Invent on the hoof. That's what I always do. I sort of have an idea, and then I know what the goal is going to be, but how we're going to get there, we really don't know yet. So I know it's a little bit OTT, but we like OTT here, don't we? I mean, if that's all you've got is an old wrecking bar that you never use, you could put that inside a scaffolding tube, couldn't you? That would be an unbreakable lock, that would be. Wow, yeah. If it was a slightly bigger door or a bigger building, you could use a box within a box. As long as you could get this to move. I mean, you could put grease on it, and that would sit there for a while, and just sort of put a grease nipple up here or shove grease in it once a year just to make it. But I mean, if you're talking about, you could make a mechanism where a piece of box goes in and out of a piece of box. You've just got to start thinking, what have I got? What can I make? How am I going to make it work? How much space have I got? You could even put that box inside this box, if that was your flavour. You could even use this, and then what you do is you get something harder inside, and just the bit where you think they would attack it, you'd strengthen it up, you'd weld that into this. You could use that if that suited your purpose. There's so many things you can do and adapt and build and make fit. Yeah, it doesn't have to fit exactly. This lock, if you know, if 25% of the weld holds, it's going to be that big and massive. That's still going to be plenty enough. You could get something and strengthen it where the attack points, because obviously you've got to think of, they're going to see it. You've got to think, well, how are they going to break it? Which bit would they attack? Like a door, you know, they see a steel door, they attack the lock. Well, at the point of where you think they're going to attack it, you would strengthen it by putting stronger metal in there, or, you know, like I say, you get through here with a hacksaw or a grindette fairly easily. But with this hidden inside it, it would make it that much tougher and harder to get through, wouldn't it? You could even use a hinge as a pivot point, couldn't you? Use an old door hinge. You can use a door hinge we brought in there the other day. Because what a hinge does, yes, we know a hinge hangs a door, but what it allows you to do is change direction. That's all a hinge does, is allow you to move one thing to a different direction to the other thing. We could do something like that, couldn't we? Use a hinge as a joint. If you wanted to block that hole, we're thinking of doing it this way, in and out, aren't we? But it could also do that. There's two ways of blocking a hole. It's going across the face of it, or dropping down from above, or coming up from below. Oh, there's so many different thoughts running through my head. Would you block it, or would you poke it through? Poke it through would block it. Drop it down would block it. Lift it from the bottom up, block it. Okay, we're going a bit OTT now, but this is just an extension bar off your probably end of your tow bar. But that would be one closing bar and a half, wouldn't it? But you'd need the power to drive it, wouldn't you? But yeah, that would be a proper keep the two surfaces. If you wanted to lock two surfaces together, you'd use that, wouldn't you? The more I look, the more I find. It makes security chain puny next to what we're thinking about, you know. Makes the chain worthless, doesn't it? All right, they've got to get through that much surface of chain. We're going to make it much bigger and stronger than that. I mean, we've been fairly simple thinking about, you know, bars going in and out. But I mean, you could make yourself some sort of a hooking device. You could use a shackle. I mean, there's not much stronger than a shackle. And you could make some sort of a hooking device where it hooks over to so we can go across and block it, or we can hook it and grip it. Some sort of, you know, hook device. You can put it on a twist or a bar, or wow. The more you think, the more you know, the world is our oyster.